Hi everyone, it's Cindy Royal and I'm here again in my dining room. I'm continuing my series with SJMC alumni, talking to them about how the COVID-19 pandemic has been affecting them personally and in their workplaces. And I'm just so pleased to be talking to people who work for the Texas Restaurant Association today. There are alumni Anna Tauzin and Alexandra White. Thank you guys for joining me today.
Oh, happy to be here. Hi, Cindy.
sorry that I asked that in mid-sip.
Not poorly.
Anna is the Chief Revenue and Innovation Officer for Texas Restaurant Association, something that both of those things are in extreme need, revenue and innovation for restaurants. And Alexandra is a digital marketing specialist for Texas Restaurant Association. Anna graduated several years ago from our program in journalism, and Alexandra was a master's student in our program, graduated just in 2018. And I was really happy that they could both work together and that Alexandra could get some additional experience in a digital and innovation environment. So let's start out by having you guys talk about, maybe Anna go first, talk about your function in the Texas Restaurant Association.
This role was created for me basically after my time with Texas Restaurant Association. And of course I was with the National Restaurant Association in DC before this. Never intended to end up in trade associations, but I fell in love with restaurants. And so that's why I'm here. Basically my role is to reinvent what the association is doing and come up with ways to make money off of it. So that's the pretty short version of it. But underneath and in my department, I have business development, marketing and communications, partnerships, products and services, and then, anything else that gets thrown my way, basically.
And Alexandra, what do you do as a digital marketing specialist?
So I wear a lot of different hats, but I do a lot of email marketing to different audiences like members, non-members, and then for our trade show, exhibitors and attendees and things like that. And then I handle, I think, the bulk of social media posting and planning. And especially during the pandemic, it's gotten a lot heavier, but it feels really good to be spreading resources and sharing all of these things that restaurants need. And we've kind of been able to see this transition to restaurants kind of depending more on us for their news, not only with things that concern restaurants, but things that are kind of just surrounding COVID-19 as well. So yeah, it's just adding a lot of new people to our email lists that kind of want to be a part of the messaging. And then I also do a lot with our new mobile app, which is also another platform that we're sharing all of our messaging with.
I can see that you both are in your homes. And so how is the work from home strategy working for your team?
Well, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I don't really sleep much these days. I mean, especially because of what we do, it's such an important resource for restaurants in Texas right now. And so if I make it to my bed, I'm really proud of myself. But typically I fall asleep on the couch and wake up and just keep going. I do make sure that every morning I take a shower, I try to put on a little bit of concealer and eyebrow pencil to feel good about myself. Cause we start off every day with 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock Zoom meetings with the executive staff. And then we roll from there. I actually, as a boss, have to be very cognizant of that bad habit and make sure that I don't bother my staff when it's 7 o'clock p.m. Now, to Alexandra's credit, she will always respond and sometimes be like, maybe I can do that in the morning. And I'm like, oh yes, that's right. But I try to be really respectful of their time and make sure that they're not being overloaded either, because I need them in for the long haul. And I want to make sure that they're healthy and safe and taken care of. But personally, it's fine. I still go out and go get curbside and to go from restaurants. Obviously I'm supporting restaurants, everything that I can do. I have not been to the grocery store in a month and probably won't, because I can get everything I need from restaurants. And then, yeah, I mean, I do have a patio, so I go outside when I can. But honestly, I'm working around the clock. And so I'm not really seeing the sunshine very much right now.
And Alexandra, have there been particular challenges for you in working from home?
So like I mentioned earlier, we just moved into this new house, and our bedroom has this dedicated desk space. So it's actually really nice. because I have a space that's not like my kitchen table right next to my couch, where I can like have this space where I'm like sitting up straight and I'm able to concentrate, and the only thing that's in front of me is like my work. But also if I need a break, I have like an entire floor where I can just like go downstairs, get a drink of water, like go out on the deck, that kind of thing. So once we moved to this new place, I think it's been easier, besides my neighbor that plays his guitar in his backyard and sings like Nickelback. But everything else has been, it's been a pretty easy transition, since most of the work that I do is online anyway. And like Anna and I will share TikToks with the team whenever we're feeling a little lonely. And we'll do like team calls and just talk to each other about not work. So it hasn't been too challenging for me. I kind of thought I would lose a lot of motivation, but I think since I have like a dedicated workspace, it's been a pretty easy transition.
And what have you all had to do to support restaurants specifically? I mean, what is Texas Restaurant Association helping with in terms of innovation?
To be completely frank, we're kicking ass out there. We are doing everything we can to keep restaurants afloat. I mean, when Governor Abbott's order came down, remember it was county by county and city by city on closing restaurant dining rooms first. And then Governor Abbott came out with all restaurant dining rooms are closed, but they are open for curbside takeout to go. There's a reason why elected officials have all been very supportive of restaurants in every single one of their addresses. It's because we have relationships with them and we are in front of them and saying, hey, don't forget, we're 51% of the food source in the state. So you cannot close restaurants. People need to get their food from there. Not a lot of people can go to grocery stores and just stock up on a lot of food, either because they can't afford it or they don't have a car or it's just not right for them, or they don't know how to cook, which is also an issue. And so they need to have restaurants available. So a lot of it has been making sure the restaurants stay open. And then the other part of it is advocating on their behalf to make sure that they can get sales tax relief, alcohol tax relief. A lot of those bills come every quarter, and restaurants generate a lot of income in the state for taxes. And so I don't think people realize like how much comes from restaurants. And so we need sort of a little bit of relief right now. A lot of our restaurants are hurting when it comes to capital. They've had to lay off their staff, sometimes their whole staff. Some of them are temporarily closed. Some of them are already permanently closed. We know that just since March 22nd, so the survey stopped on March 22nd, they've laid off 208,000 restaurant employees, but we actually predict it's going to go a lot higher than that and probably be like 1 million. And then just since between March 1st and March 22nd, they lost 43% of sales, which is about $1.8 billion that was not generated in the state. And we will not get that back. And that's only increasing. Again, that was from the 22nd of March. It's been 2 weeks now. So it's not good. And all we're trying to do is hope and maintain the cultural significance of independent restaurants and small chain restaurants within the state.
With Governor Abbott, we launched a program called the Comfort Food Care Package program. It's a mouthful. And basically restaurants can add a menu item to their menu that's kind of like a bulk family order. And so what people can do, they can either order for their own families, or they can specify that they want to buy one of these meal packages for a family in need. And then once that restaurant gets that order, they contact their, I think, representative in their area, and then they kind of direct where that meal should go for a family in need. And we have an entire web page on it with, different areas. And so far, I think it's been pretty successful.
Yeah, we got like more than 130 restaurants signed up, and we're trying to onboard chains right now too, because like Jason's Deli and Cowboy Chicken, they all want to be involved. And so we got to add all their locations to it. But it's really like a win-win-win for everyone. The restaurant gets money, they get to keep their doors open, they're making food, it's being donated to people in need, and then consumers feel good because they feel like they're doing something too. And we did this really cool thing with El Arroyo actually last week before last?
Sure.
I can't remember.
At
where
some
they did,
point we did it.
Yeah, they did. It was awesome. They did a live stream concert for us with like Robert O'Keen and Ray Wiley Hubbard and Kelly Willis and like a bunch of really awesome Texas musicians. We raised like 30 grand. It was awesome.
Are there particular examples of very innovative ways that restaurants have been handling this situation? I mean, we've seen some that came right out of the gate with ideas. A few needed a couple weeks to reformulate.
Mhm.
What are you seeing in terms of specific examples of dealing with this?
Sure. So a lot of those restaurants had to immediately pivot their full service restaurant. A full service restaurant is when you go in and dine in and sit and order from a server, and immediately pivot to curbside to go and delivery orders. That's a whole new business model. And if they were doing delivery before, and a lot of them were, it was probably only about 12% of their business. And now it's 100% of their business. So where there was no drive-through before and no way for people to go and do contactless pickup, they've had to build them. Basically, a lot of people bought big tents and cones and signage to show people, where to go and how to order. They've all sort of, not all of them, but most of them have instituted online ordering platforms, which we've always been in favor of, so that people can pay online as well and don't have to touch credit cards and stuff like that. And then, of course, we were able to get Governor Abbott to sign an executive order allowing restaurants to sell grocery items, which has been really helpful. We actually did a webinar on that yesterday, to show how restaurants are doing this. So they're selling milk and eggs and bread, a lot of the essentials, paper products, but then also some sort of value add products as well, like homemade pasta and homemade sauces too.
And so, Alexandra, a lot of your communications probably have to deal with putting out this information so that restaurants can understand some of the things that they can be doing, right?
Right. So we've kind of shifted our messaging on the consumer side to emphasize strategically that, the CDC has said this virus isn't foodborne, so it is okay to still do curbside. It's okay to still do delivery. Restaurants are still open, even though you can't go inside. So, support your local restaurants, things like that. And I don't know if you've seen, but there's been the Great American Takeout initiative. So for the past couple of weeks, we've been encouraging people to go and post their pictures of people who are picking up curbside or getting their food delivered to them or things like that. And then on the restaurant end, we have kind of built this coronavirus resource page that we have basically been updating every day or so, with various resources that restaurants can go and look and see, whatever they may have a question about. It's kind of sectioned off by categories. So they're able to find the resources that they need in one place really quickly, so they can kind of make this transition as fast as they can and, hopefully not lose any more revenue than they already have.
If a restaurant is full service and they've never done anything like this before, what are some of the basic things they have to think about to begin with to move in this direction?
So the first thing they need to think about is communication, right? So communication with their consumers and communication with their staff about what this change looks like. And so that's the first thing they have to do. They also need to look at their menu items and see, is there something that maybe they can get rid of? If there's a high cost menu item that they may not want to keep on because it involves a lot of labor or the ingredients themselves are expensive, they might want to consider moving that off for now. And then also talk to their suppliers. That is a huge benefit for a lot of our restaurants, as the supplier network is enormous and they're really, really helpful. So when I say suppliers, I mean people like Benny Keith and Cisco, Jake's, those kinds of people that deliver food to people, to restaurants, and talking to them about what's working, because they also see a lot of things about like what's happening in the market. What do people have, excuse the pun, but a hunger for, and how can they beef up their menu to include some of those items? So that's probably what they need to do first, is think about communication and then items that are offered.
How about from a health perspective? Obviously, restaurants have a strong emphasis on health and health inspections. Is there anything different they need to be thinking about now in terms of managing their workforce and working through their processes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's changed a lot, actually. So in every day, there seems to be something new. And because Texans believe in the value of locality, a lot of the orders come from the city or the county. And so we have to track all of that, right? We have 254 counties in Texas. And so there's a lot of different changes constantly on that. Restaurants have always been really good when it comes to sanitation. And we're working with all of our health departments around the state so that they maintain that and make sure that our restaurants kind of know what additional steps need to be taken. And so they were very quick to, start wiping things down more often, putting out hand sanitizer for people, not just their guests, but their staff as well, encouraging people to wash their hands more, even though they always, that's hand washing stations are all over the place in a restaurant. So that's pretty common. But interestingly, there's been some adjustments to the EEOC rules around what you can do when it comes to talking to your staff. before, you can never really ask someone like, what are your symptoms? Or have you seen a doctor recently? Because that, violates some privacy rules. But now it is absolutely imperative that you ask those kinds of questions. And some restaurants have actually started taking temperature checks, literal temperature checks of their staff before they come to work. And I think that's very wise. They do need to be doing that. And I think they just lowered the limit as well for what the temperature can be. I think in Travis County, it's now like 99.6 and it was 100.2 or something like that. So people can, so restaurants are taking temperatures of staff to make sure that they're safe.
I mean, that's a lot of changes for a restaurateur to take in all at one time. And so this is a very challenging environment for them and all their employees.
Oh yeah. I mean, it really is the perfect storm. It is an absolute catastrophe. It's going to change the landscape of restaurants in our state and others for a very long time. We are going to see restaurants not reopen. I mean, 25% of independent restaurants are gone. Like, that's just what it's going to be. I really, I value our chain restaurant partners, absolutely, but I would still rather go dine out at a local independent spot than a chain restaurant. And that may not be an option for everyone going forward. So it is so important that we're able to give restaurants the relief funding that they need and get them tax breaks wherever we can and get them, working. Any way that they can make some revenue is vital to their life right now.
With so many people going on unemployment in a range of careers, but particularly because restaurants are closing down and bars are closing down, what advice do you have for my students who are graduating now and moving into a very, very challenging workforce, job hunting situation? Alexandra, you just graduated about 1.5 years ago, and you remember what it was like to look for a job. What kind of advice might you have for somebody now that's looking for a position?
So I think, especially being in the digital sector, it is so important to be able to maintain productivity when you may not be able to be face-to-face with your team. And knowing things like Teams, like Microsoft Teams or Slack or things like that will really give you a big advantage because your potential future employer can see that you kind of don't, lack of a better term, like need your hand held because things are kind of crazy. You maybe not be able to be as monitored as you might usually be, and your boss isn't always like an office away from you. So kind of showing that you can work independently and that you can work remotely, I think is a really big deal.
And you had a side gig where you're a photographer, and some of that's been challenged in this environment.
Yeah, yes, it has. It is obviously stressful for the couples that I work with, and it's stressful for me for different reasons. But it's kind of reassuring them, like before any of my spring brides had rescheduled their weddings, I sent out an email saying, before the shelter in place was put in place in Austin, I kind of sent them an email saying, hey, I am fortunate to have this job where I'm able to work at home. I just want to reassure you that I'm taking, every precaution possible so I can be there for your big day. If it makes you feel safe for me to wear a mask and gloves, I can absolutely do that. And then as it kind of progressed, they've all rescheduled for the fall. So nothing has been canceled or anything yet. I just have tried to encourage them to work with me and their venue, because those are two of the hardest vendors to kind of reschedule with. And all my couples have been really great. And so far we have most of them rescheduled for the fall or kind of late summer. So if we have to reschedule again, I think, I feel like venues aren't, charging anything. I'm waiving all of my rescheduling fees just because this is so unpredictable. But yeah, I think it's just maintaining that open communication. And I know one of my brides that had to reschedule is a nurse right now. So she is like, I've sent her a rescheduled contract a couple of times, but she's so slammed. I'm like, look, you still have your date reserved. Please don't worry about this. There are so many other important things going on. Like, please know that your date will not be taken by somebody else, that kind of thing. So really just like being open and being compassionate towards people that you work with, I think will help everybody get through it.
Obviously, events is just a whole other aspect of this situation that has been completely shut down because people can't gather in the way that we have in the past for any kind of a festival or personal event like a wedding. So that's just a whole other area of revenue and tax and employment that's not going to be able to happen for quite some time. Anna, if you were going to hire somebody in this environment, what kind of things would you be looking for from them?
We're not hiring. But if I were,
hypothetically speaking, and
sure.
Someday hopefully you will.
I mean, Alexandra really outlined it. I personally, my management style, I don't have a lot of time to provide instruction, and she does that. It's a lot of like, here's this, run with this. I got a little bit here, and just see what you can come up with. So I absolutely need people that are self-starters and ask questions and know how to just run with stuff, and are not afraid to like put something very ugly in front of me for some very gentle feedback. So I need people that, you know, have thick skin too. Like that's really important. But I think if I were looking at someone's portfolio or trying to see if I wanted to hire them, I would want to know, what did they do during this time that kept themselves relevant and kept their skills up? So Alexandra's right, like learning how to do Teams and Zoom calls and project management software, it would be really helpful right now. But then also I want to see like, what, you know, who were you talking to? What did you do during this time? Because I mean, I'm not available, but a lot of people are. You know, you could easily, like Cindy did, create this video series on like cool people to talk to and just check in. And that's really awesome. And so that kind of thing is really what I'm looking for. If people are self-starters and they're creative and they have thick skin, that's really very valuable right now. I can't say what the future is going to look like for, you know, our industry as well as several others, but I know those skills will always be incredibly valuable. And just a note too on Cindy, on the events thing you just mentioned, we have a massive event every summer where we have 6,000 people that come together at a convention center, and that is up in the air, you know, right now. And we think that we're going to be able to move forward on it, but the timing might change. We're not quite sure yet. And that is a huge revenue stream for us. You know, that's $1 million easily right there. And without that revenue, without, you know, the need for certain projects related to workforce development, without the need for business development, because frankly, all of our products are geared towards restaurants purchasing things from us and no one's purchasing anything right now. We had to make cuts at TRA. So we actually had to lay off 6 of our own just last week. And that was hard. That was a really hard day. Knowing that they're going to get additional benefits because of the pandemic is nice, and that feels good. But I know very well what I'm throwing those people into, because we're dealing with it all the time with our own restaurants, you know. So that was hard. And as a manager, you never like to have to do that. But in order for a business to survive, you sometimes have to make those kinds of tough calls.
I mean, it's such a difficult thing for the people who are being let go, but the people who stay behind have a lot of guilt. And, you know, I can see and hear in your voice how upset you are by having had to do that. And, it, you know, makes it difficult to run an organization when you quickly have to let people go that you were not planning on, you know, having that reduction in force. Are you thinking about virtual ways you might be able to accomplish some of the activities of that event if you do have to cancel the in-person part of it?
The whole thing, so this event is a trade show and educational conference, right? The educational side, I can do virtually no problem. I'm running webinars every other day right now with great panelists from across the state and experts, and that's been really, really well received. But so much of what we do is about evaluating new restaurant equipment that you want to buy. And there's, you know, you can just Google it if you want to do that, but being able to touch it and see it and visualize what this piece of machinery might look like in my restaurant, that you can't really replicate online or virtually. And there are people that do like virtual trade shows. To me, it's a little cheesy and kind of looks like Second Life, like back in the day. Like it all just seems really weird and pixelated. And I don't know. I don't really like it. And I don't think you can ever replicate like in-person, you know, relationship building and equipment evaluation. So I think we have to change how we handle some of that, but I don't think we'll ever be able to go full virtual for that.
So just to wrap things up, what is the one thing that you want the general public to know about supporting restaurants right now?
Spend all your money at a restaurant. Like whatever you can do to buy groceries from them or buy meals from them, or even just, send them a note and say you're thinking of them, like that goes a long way. So I would say, spend your money where you want to support, that they're still around and they need it.
Alexandra?
Yeah, if you can, keep supporting the local restaurants. Because I live with 2 other people, we've been trying to tip a little more than we normally would because they've seen a big decrease in customers. And if you're on social media, like tag these restaurants on social media and tell people what they're doing, because some have not had the ability to sit down and, update their websites and things like that. So kind of help do it for them and spread the word about which restaurants are open and see how safe and sanitary they're being with your food, and that contactless delivery is possible. And just, yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. I know you're super busy, and I appreciate the time you've been able to spend with me today, and just keep on fighting the good fight and supporting those restaurants that are so important to not only our economy, but our culture.
Oh, don't worry, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you.